All right, so for those keeping score, we just took our third exam. Yes, ma'am?
I don't have a grade for my first exam.
Are you sure?
I only have a grade for the midterm we just took.
So, yes, let me ask that question, because on my dashboard, when I'm entering the grades, it ends up showing that there are 3 different compartments. And I'm kind of trying to watch to be sure that they're all filled in. So it's almost like I have to enter your grade for each exam 3 different times. And I don't know how that happened, but it's almost as if it was copied and then copied and then copied.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how that happened within the university IT department. But I'll check on that and see.
Okay.
Because I feel very sure I put your grade in there. If I put
Okay.
everybody else's grade in there, I'd put yours
Well,
in
yeah,
there.
some people said they have a grade for it, but I don't.
Yeah.
So.
I didn't see my grade the first time around, but I'm double checking right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you checking?
I
And
did
so what I
check.
could have done is I could have put it in, say, the first compartment, and then maybe the others in the second compartment. But throughout the semester, I've been watching your grades, and it seems like every time I enter grades, another compartment comes up. So it's gone from 1 to 2 to 3, and I don't know why it's repeating itself. And I'm worried because if I put your regular grades, like your 80s and 90s and whatever, hundreds, in one compartment and not the other, is it giving you a 0 in those, and then is that averaging your grade down from 100, so I got 33 or something?
Yeah, I would contact IT.
Yeah.
Because I feel like it's not supposed to be that.
Does it show your grade, or is it showing you the composite? Because what it does is it's building a score.
It
So most of you
shows-
have like a 17.9% right now.
This is
Okay.
what we see.
Let me look at that.
And it looks
Some
like-
things are repeated on there though.
Yeah.
There's like 2 midterms on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's 2 ways to look at this. One is like a spreadsheet like this, and there's another one that goes long
Is
ways.
it management POA?
And this is what's bothering me, because
Yeah,
management
his is
POA,
not
you
organized
gotta-
like other teachers.
you see your grade, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, come down here, management POA. There's a 0.
Yeah.
So I'm concerned that
But I would like
I'm gonna have to go back in and put in
this
that there also. Does that make sense? So that you get credit for all your scores. Or is it just counting the ones that we've done so far?
I don't know, but it's all repeated.
Yes.
It's on there like 3 times, each thing.
That's right.
So,
And when we first started, he was only on there once. And then the second time I went in to check some grades and be sure everybody was caught up, all of a sudden there were 2. And then this past week I went in there and it was 3. I don't know what's going on. Now here's the good news and things you don't have to worry about. What I'll absolutely positively do is make sure if any of that is screwed up, I have an opportunity to do what they call a final adjusted grade. So in case some instructors want a grade on the curve, they can change a 65 to a 75. Does that make sense? I'll make sure the final adjusted grade is exactly what you have. Make
Okay.
sense?
Is that first exam the management POA?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I have a grade for that then. I'm
Okay.
sorry.
I don't think I have a grade for that.
And
I just
then
looked and I
we
didn't.
haven't done,
The final exam, the pro forma project, home study 2/26/16.
You're not going to do that because that was through 2016. We're in 18.
Yeah.
oh, okay.
Profit planning, budget practice, cost control management, discussion 1,
That's where it starts over.
and then it starts over.
Yeah.
From zeros.
Well, I'll see if I can't fix it between now and next week. And
Okay.
But wait, we haven't done those things though, right?
you should not have done event planning. You just did that.
Yeah.
So that won't be in there.
But all those.
Menu, you don't have because that's going to be April the 22nd.
Menu?
Uh-huh. Do you see menu development in there someplace?
No, I see profit, planning, budget, cost control management, and the pro forma exam.
By the way, did you guys see the email I sent out this week?
That had the,
And have the
Legal
case
study?
study?
Practice?
yeah, I got that.
mine didn't come with the practice stuff.
It wasn't attached?
Uh-oh.
You know what happened? Yours bounced back and said undeliverable for some reason. The university would let you have it. I didn't see that till yesterday.
That's great.
Rachel, you get it here.
Hmm?
You get it here in the fall.
Mhm.
Did you know that there's a theory in the class? It's a 300 level class, and all you do is like go to Blueberries and case check
Next semester?
Next semester, take it.
Okay, so menu is included in final exam, that's what that is. Well, good. I'm glad I get to see what you see. That was helpful for me. That's the first time in 3 years. So we're winding up chapter 4, event planning. And we spent about 9 hours working on that. Here's a great book. I want to show everybody the book. Should you ever get into this business and you want to do this kind of stuff, it's called Event Management for Tourism, Cultural Business, and Sporting Events. And it is an entire semester class where they have chapter after chapter on the topics that we just talked about. So, introduction to event management. Guess what? What's the size of the event? What are the types of event? Concept and design, planning and organizing, feasibility studies, legal compliance, marketing, promotions, image, branding, financial management, leadership, operate. Those are all the chapters inside this particular book. The preface, the start. Atlanta Success Story by Absolutely Atlanta. That was the catering firm, or the event management firm. The project was to deliver a powerful presentation, create an environment of celebration, transform an active aircraft hangar into a beautiful ballroom, reveal the stunning new painted scheme of the Boeing 777 to 7,000 members of the press and employees of a major airline. What airline do you think it was? I'm going to guess. It's Atlanta.
Delta.
Delta's headquarters are in Atlanta, at Hartsfield Airport. So they took a hangar where they paint planes, converted it into a giant ballroom, and then here are the challenges and so forth and so on. So everything that we did the past 2 weeks is done in a little more specifics. How's that? Specificity. All right, here's the book. If anybody ever does this, bravo. You've got more information. Next piece. While you're taking your exams, I got a phone call. Did you see that I got a phone call? Did y'all notice? And you remember we've been working on, I gave you kind of a presentation for the University of Illinois. Yeah, the only reason I took the phone call was because it was the athletics director for the University of Illinois. And he was asking me for a reference for the FedEx Forum and the Liberty Bowl Stadium. So what's your takeaway from that?
About to do some business.
Huh?
About to do some business.
No, yeah, well, so what they did is they have put this out to bid, and now they have 2-3 companies that have listed various locations as a reference point. So they put down those stadiums. What the athletic director there in Illinois knows that I live in Memphis, so he's calling me to say, now they are telling me they do a great job, they're fantastic, this is what the community thinks about their work, and so forth and so on. Larry, can you verify that? Because they're going to make a selection, and they're trying to check their due diligence and do everything they're supposed to check references. So what do you take away from that? That's kind of the question.
They're being very thorough.
They're being very thorough.
The FedEx Forum is a good example.
Is it?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Compared to what?
Right.
Yeah, example of like, I'm sorry, example of what?
Okay, so in these colleges and universities, on campus, they typically have a stadium with 85,000 seats, and the football team plays there. They have an arena very similar to the Mid-South Coliseum, which you guys probably weren't even born when that was closed. But it's kind of like the FedEx Forum, okay? They have a baseball stadium like AutoZone Park. They have a softball field. They have a soccer field. They've got dining for all the athletes. They have to provide them food 24 hours a day, snacks, beverages, energy drinks, healthy food, proteins. So it's a very wide variety. So here's what I wanted, my point of telling you this. It doesn't matter where you work, people are gonna check your references. They're gonna go back and say, what's going on? So for example, one of the companies said they managed the Liberty Bowl Stadium. And they said, what kind of job they do there? And I gave them my opinion. But then I said, you need to be careful because they don't manage the food service. They only do the box office and the operational point. They keep the restrooms clean, they check the tickets, they run the parking, they make sure the field is painted and so forth. They're not in concessions. And you're looking for a food service operator. Oh, that's different. We don't need anybody running the box office and housekeeping and that kind of thing. We need food service operators. And the other one that basically was very proud of what they do, and he asked me for that opinion. I said they have a tendency to give you great designs and concepts, but on the follow-through part, they're not very good with employees. They have a lot of turnover, they're not trained, so they can put a lot of lipstick on the pig, so to speak, but it's still a pig. So just remember that even though you're in this, if you go to work for one of those corporations, you have the opportunity to do that. People are going to check your references. They're going to go back and they're going to say, hey, what do you think? Are these guys really doing their job? That make sense? Okay. Having said that, we talked about your grades a little bit and we talked about the semester project. Have you guys started on the semester project yet?
Is there like a rubric or anything?
That's the one where you're supposed to go to the different concessions.
No.
No, it's making up your own.
Do we have like instructions and a rubric?
Yes, I've given you instructions and I bring these samples of what people have done in the past.
Oh, that's it? I was expecting like to have like a rubric so we know what to include and what to base it off of.
Okay, so the rubrics, if you wanted, would be the case histories that we've studied in the book. That's the kind of information I'm looking for, okay? How can you transform this information that you've learned now into a real live, almost proposal? This is what it's going to look like. And so I keep bringing these because I would think that at some point somebody might take out their cell phone and take pictures of the various pages and they would get a variety of, or a feel for what this looks like and how you would get a good grade.
So we have to create our own numbers and make sure they all add up. And
That's exactly right. So you asked me to send you a sample via email, right? And what was the event? Huh? Fleetwood Mac. How many people were coming? No, it was 10, I think. 12, something like that.
I
But
didn't get it, so. I didn't
Yeah. I'm sorry. I did it. I took the skeleton, the organization of that, and just converted it. So that I created an event. It was a concert. I created the attendance. Where did that number come from?
your per cap.
No. Where did the attendance come from?
Ticket sales
What kind of ticket sales?
projected
Projected ticket sales. How do I know that?
from past events.
Historical data, exactly. So as much as we've talked about arenas, how many seats are in an arena typically?
20,000.
At max.
Like, give her
20.
So NBA arena, 20,000. University of Kentucky, for example, their basketball team, I think they have the biggest basketball arena on a campus. It's 18,000. FedEx Forum seats 18,000. Okay, if we're at a smaller venue, it might be like the amphitheater down at Mud Island has 5,500 seats. So I just made up a number, 10,000. It kind of fits in that category. If we were doing stadiums, what kind of number would you guess at?
50,000.
50,000. Why'd you say 50,000?
It's a good number.
Huh?
It's a good number.
It's a good number. It is, but why would you say 50,000? You've learned something.
Yeah.
I'm trying to tell you that you've learned something. You're going to tell me how you learned it. Because you've listened to me stand up here and talk about stadiums all
Yeah.
semester, right? And so, how many seats are at the Liberty Bowl Stadium? 62,000.
Yeah.
Okay. How many seats are at Auburn University? 85,000, bigger, right? Bigger program. Alabama has 100 and plus. Michigan, University of Michigan has 103,000. But saying 103,000 would be way on the high end for a college football stadium. Does that make sense? And then you have schools like Rhodes here. They could probably seat about 6,000. That would be way too low. So the 50,000 number was a really good number to kind of just throw out there as an example. Does that make sense? If we were doing an amusement park, if you wanted, somebody in here created it's a zoo and gardens in Atoka, Tennessee.
So,
And they basically wrote a case history. And they said, this is what their place looks like. This
So
is
you
the
have-
operating hours. This is,
do you have to make your own charts and everything?
yes. Yes.
You have
But
template
if you
charts?
come up here and you look at some of this, you're going to see that you already know how to do this.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Do you have like templates or anything for like?
No, I don't have templates. I have actual pieces. And you'll see if you come up here at the break, you can look at these and you can see every, like this one right here is Edinburgh Castle. Y'all know Joanna Bernardini? I think she graduated, oh, she was in 16, so probably not. But this is a presentation where Joanna is trying to impress me. So, unlike this presentation, it's black and white, she took it a step further and used color art. Okay? And then she went through and she did the case history. And she said, these are the hours of operation, and these are the events that we're going to have, and so forth and so on. And then went another step further and said, this is what I'm going to pay my manager, and this is what the assistant managers are going to make. Where would you get that information?
Case history.
Case histories that you've already had. You get a
Get
feel for it.
ideas.
Right. Yeah, and you can pay your manager more or less. When you get finished, you're going to plug in your case history into form A, B, C, and D, and you're going to find out if it makes money. And if it's losing money, what are you going to do? You're going to go back to the case history and change it. Either increase the per cap or lower the manager's salary or something. Does that make sense? This one right here was turned in spring of 2000. This is one of the better ones. Again, portfolio. Not just a piece of paper, okay? This is more impressive, isn't it? If you're operating in Universal Studios and looking for somebody to run, what's it called? Harry Potter World? So she's created the Tri-Wizard Tournament, okay? Cover page. She put in a table of contents, the history. Why are they doing this? She went through the whole facility. In the back, she has a list of all the menu items and pictures. Okay? So you see the different degrees that you have to work with? Now, how long do you think it takes to do this?
I mean, if you wait until the last minute, probably a very long time.
Yes. Look at this one right here. It's even more thorough. You all know Yang
Yeah.
Zhao? You know him? This is Yang participated in this one. Look how thorough this is. He's basically creating a restaurant. Has the organizational chart in there, the hours. How many hours are they working and where are they paying their people? He took everything he learned in the class and transformed it into a real business plan that he could present to a bank. Okay?
What if we have a business plan? Can we kind of tweak it a little bit and use that?
Yes.
Because I did a business plan for a class a couple of semesters ago, and I still have, just like Yang's,
Yeah.
like still on the binder and everything.
Yeah, yeah. So, to your point, yes. So if you wanted to use the same methodology and just call it mobile stadium in California, that's fine with me, okay? But what I want to do is I want to see if you've gathered enough of this information so that you can actually write a business plan for this kind of activity. Does that make sense? Yeah. That's the overall goal. So that's your semester project. And the reason I keep bringing it up each week is because I know too many times people are going to wait till April the 15th and they're going to say, when's the project due? And I'm going to say next week, and they all go, and joke.
So what day is it due?
April 22nd.
April 22nd.
It's due the same day as the final exam.
Oh,
When is the
thought
final
I thought the
exam?
final was
Is the final the week after that, like the
Do you mean
20th?
April 20th? Because April 22nd is a Sunday.
Yes, no. What's the week, April 27th?
27th.
Yeah,
It's Friday.
that's Friday, April 22nd.
Okay,
7th.
yeah, because that's what I have this, is that the certification?
Yes,
Okay,
The certification is the final exam?
yes.
which is the project.
No, you have the project due the same day as the certification.
Oh. So what is the certification when we gonna start talking about how that's gonna be tested?
I would rather you just place your trust in me.
All right. All right.
Kevin? Have I been right so far?
So far.
So far, thank you. Okay, I will bring these, I will continue to bring them. Now, April the 20th, that's why I remember that date. April the 20th is going to be your hands-on visit to the Paradiso.
Sorry, look at April.
April 20, April 20th. Instead of coming here, we're going to meet at the Paradiso Cinema at 9 a.m.
On the 20th,
the 20th, Friday the 20th.
at the Paradiso?
Yes. What we're going to do is we're going to have a couple of the staff members over there walk you through what it's like to open a concession stand. You're going to count inventory, you're going to learn how to pop popcorn, you're going to look how to store things in warehouses, and those kinds of things.
How do
So
you
you-
suggest we dress for that?
Casual, just like you're dressing now. It'll probably be the most fun day you have all year. I've been known to pass out lunch and pizzas and movies.
It's a valid question.
Pardon me?
No.
Okay. Does anybody have a problem with transportation? Okay.
We're meeting at the Paradiso at 9 a.m., regular dress,
Right. Just like you're dressed now. So
on
you get-
April 20th.
Right. All right. Back to the book. What I'm going to try to do today is introduce cost controls. So we've done chapter 1, we've done chapter 2, we've done chapter 3, you just finished chapter 4. Next chapter is chapter 5 is menus and what menus are like. But menus are very easy to go through in this book, so I'm going to save that until April the 6th, 7th, after that date. That's what the syllabus said.
Wait, what is April the 6th? I'm sorry.
We're gonna be doing
Oh, okay, cool.
Right.
Just making sure I got
So
all my
then,
important
that's right.
dates.
I think chapter 6 is concession stand management, and it's really a little bit repetitive because everything we've done so far is concession stand management. All right? We're going to skip to chapter 9. I think 7 is catering, 8 is training, 9 is cost controls. We're going to do cost controls first, then we're going to go back to chapter 5, menus. All right. Any questions? So, we're going to start, kind of turn to page, I think it's 218. Am I right? Cost controls for food service management. If you remember, POA management, planning, organizing, and action. Action had 3 pillars, 3 things we wanted to stay focused on, 3 categories. Who remembers the 3 categories? Staffing,
Staffing.
leading, controlling. And so we got a little taste of controlling on the first part, but this is where we're really going to get into it. So what I want to tell you is that controls are a descent of the plan. See, we start out with the objective. And what do we want to do in most cases? We have 2 objectives in this business. What are they?
Financial
Thank you.
and service.
And service, right. So we have to determine, what's our objective? Are we providing a service or do we want to make money? Okay. Next piece. Do we have a plan for that? Well, guess what? In these books right here, we have designed a plan. You guys worked on the profit planning side. Do you remember that? And you said, okay, this is what the anticipated business is. This is what the anticipated cost is. This is what we can expect to make or not make in this account. So you came up with a business plan or a financial plan. Now we have to look at how do we stay within those boundaries. We kind of did the same thing with event planning. What was the objective in class? What was the objective? Do you remember?
The objective,
Yeah.
is that the standard?
It's actually the event itself. We were going to have a minor league baseball game with the New York Yankees. So the objective was to have a great event with the New York Yankees at a minor league stadium. Then we created the plan, didn't we? And we practiced case history A. Now you've taken the test. What was the objective on the exam?
Or no, the one that we
We just took.
to figure out the
What was the event? Didn't it say NBA game?
yeah.
And the attendance was,
20,000.
and the per cap was? Right. And so, from that standpoint, you guys just created a plan for that event, okay? How are we going to stay within the parameters? How are we going to have great service, and how are we going to make money by controlling the cost aspect of it? So, controls end up being a descendant of the plan. Controls are, for all intents and purposes, the opposite of the plan. If you remember in week 1, 2, 3, something like that, I told you that plans are somewhat linear and they go straight this way, right? And to stay on that path, we needed some curves that kind of keep us on that path so we kept going straight. And that's what the controls are. All right. So you want to ask yourself 3 questions when you get into this control process. 1, what do I want to know? Do I want to know my cost? Do I want to know my sales? Do I want to know how long it takes? Do I need to know how often the products are going to change? So for example, if I were in this kind of position and I was going to run a stadium and I knew that I was going to sell 1 million large drinks this year, what could I order in advance and pay one price?
Your drink.
Drink cups. I could order 1 million 44-ounce drink cups, pay 5 cents a piece for them. I got them, case closed. But if I'm also running, say, a stadium club and we have a salad bar and I have to buy lettuce and tomatoes and carrots and onions and a variety of things, those are commodities and those prices are going to go up and down. It's going to change on a regular basis. So whatever my recipe cost is, I'm not going to have a real good idea of what the theoretical cost should be. So, what do you want to know? We certainly would like to know volumes, right? We'd like to know what it's going to cost. We want to know ship times. So, for example, this week we had a regional theater conference down in Tunica, Mississippi, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And it became very apparent that one of the things that I have to do in my job is I have to plan advanced promotions. So, for example, we have Sherlock Gnomes, a kids movie coming out, right? And there's an opportunity to have specialty cups and little toppers. Have you seen the toppers? And kids trays. And that gets people excited and attached to the movie. Kind of goes into what we call the promotional aspects. So we're tying retail pieces to the actual food service. And in this particular case, I have to know how many of these I want to sell 6 months ago. Why did I have to know 6 months ago?
To order them.
To order them. Where are they coming from? Say it.
China.
China. Yeah. Trying to get it through customs and everything else. Do you know how hard that is? So what happened 6 months ago, companies are wanting me to place orders for items. Case in point, Star Wars Rogue One is coming out in June. Okay? And when that movie comes out, it's going to be hot, right? But everything that I got as far as promotional materials was kind of like this. Black and white, no distinct colors, no direct artwork, any of that. So here we are. We're now at this convention. I'm going through the trade show booth. I see the company that I order from, and I see the actual items that I'm going to receive. they're really cool, and it's a very high quality. So I ordered 8,000 to start with. Now I'm saying that everybody's going to want one of these. Can I get 10,000 more? What's the answer? Why not?
Because you already had your opportunity to order.
That's exactly right. So the company that's manufacturing has already made $1 million, okay? And AMC gets a certain amount, and Regal gets a certain amount, and Larry, you get your 8,000. So this is, what do I want to know? Delivery times. How long is it going to take to get this item? What else do you want to know? How often do I want to know it? So how often do I need to know annual large drink sales? Once a year. Very good. Annually. How often do I need to know daily sales? Daily. Yeah. How often do I need to know per capita information? Each event? That could be daily, could be per event, could be per week, could be per month. So you can watch things and why are they going up and down. Ashik had a project this past summer where we collected, didn't we? We collected all this data from 2016 because we knew we were changing the software system. And once it can't be archived if it's in a different way. So we collected all the data and then we created a master book that shows how all of our sales are broke down. So I know what percent of our total sales are in combos. I know what percent of our sales are in large drinks. I know what percent of our sales are in large popcorn tubs. How many toppers did we actually sell? So that's one of the things. How often do I want to know it? And then finally, who do you want to know it? Do we need to tell our concession operators how many large drink cups we sell in a year?
Right.
No. Too much information for them. What do we need to tell them? There's a contest for selling Rogue One collector cups. Whoever sells the most collector cups tonight gets a $10 Starbucks gift card. That's what we need to tell them. And then we need to tell them how many they sold. And the following week it might be Avengers. We may have a similar contest. How many can you sell? I sold 87 last week. Maybe I can sell 90 this week. So there's some things you want them to know, some things you don't want them to know. All right. So the rules for controlling. 1, controlling accommodates the planning. It fits. Okay? Part of the plan under the method is the control system. So if we have a plan, we need a method to accomplish that plan. And what we're going to do is we're going to use certain control systems. One of the control systems is everyday inventory. In this business, we're different than most restaurants. We count every piece of inventory every day at its retail value. We balance that back against what our sales are. So we would take your cup and we would say those cups are $5 a piece. And Jessica, that cup's a little bit bigger, so we're going to say it's $10. And you have a stainless steel cup that's $15. At the end of the day, we've got $1,000. So we're going to go back and we're going to see how many of those are missing and those and those. That's what makes our business different than the typical restaurant or hospitality industry. The typical restaurant or hospitality industry would do their food costs like this. Beginning inventory, typically first day of the month, we have $13,000. And as we go through the month, all right, we've purchased $8,000. Okay, so what we've really done is we brought in $14,105, for example. Well, that's what the ending inventory is. So, if that's the case, how much is our food cost? You take this plus that, and you'd have $21,000 in food items that you've paid out in invoices. Then you went and you counted everything. You've counted your steaks and your lettuce and your tomatoes and potatoes and everything else, and you find out you have a value of this. So you're going to subtract this number. And that should be, I think, what, $6,895. In the restaurant business, this is your food cost for the month. And you would divide that by your total sales. And your total sales for the month would be, let's say, $50,000. So you take this number divided by 50,000, that would tell you what your food cost percentage is. Then you compare it to what I'm going to teach you today, and that is theoretical cost. All right. So that's how we're a little bit different. I passed out 2 forms for you guys. Let's look at this first one. We've got all kinds of things we need to control in our business. There are millions of details. Primarily what people focus on first is food cost, second labor cost. Now there are other things that we want to control, and we'll talk about that a little bit later, but we have some service things we need to control. So we've got mystery shopper reports. We've got an opening checklist. That's a control management piece. So we're going to look at that. We've got a closing checklist. Bet you have these in the restaurants as well, don't you?
Are they followed? No.
Yeah.
That's the real question.
So here, I will tell you this. This is why we like to take you guys to a facility where we're actually doing some of this stuff so you can see how it's done. But at the Paradiso, they will post one of these every day. When the opening manager or the opening supervisor comes in, they go down this list and they check off everything they're supposed to do. That make sense? And they put their name on it and sign it. And if it doesn't get done, the manager walks through and sees that something wasn't done right, that person's going to be held accountable. Same thing happens at night when they close, closing checklist. They check off everything. And then they sign it, date it, and now we know who that supervisor was that closed. So they don't necessarily say, you know, Rachel, I want you to fill the straw dispensers. I want you to clean the popcorn popper. I want you to count the candy inventory. I want you to clean the soda nozzles. So the closing manager doesn't do everything. They assign the responsibility, and then they go back and make sure that it's done. And that'd be very easy for me to do that again, right? Rachel, I want you to fill all the straw dispensers. I want you to clean the popper. You know, I want you to count the candy inventory. I want you to do the soda nozzles. Yeah, that's everything on the list. Now I'm going to go do something else. You guys go, he's not here, he's not here, he's not here. Out the back door, you went home. Or maybe you do count the candy inventory, you clean the popper, but you two don't do what you're supposed to do. Who's responsible?
He's the,
Yeah, and who's going to find out that control was not taken care of? The opening manager. When they come in and the straw dispensers are empty and the soda nozzles haven't been taken off and put in the solution to clean, we know it. And so these are service controls. So I'm going to start with food. What's your food cost? The first thing you need to know is what is the exact cost. There's 2 different types of cost. There's what we call a theoretical cost, and then there's an actual cost. A theoretical cost is that of exact science. You want to pass these out? Let's see if I've got enough. I made too many copies of the same thing.
Two copy.
They're all the pretzels.
Popcorn.
I don't have any more. Let's let them share. How many you have? 3?
Yeah, we have.
Sharon, you and Kevin share?
Yeah.
I kind of passed out an Excel kind of chart that you could do. What I didn't pass out was, where's the other sheet I had? This sheet. It's actually on the screen, we'll see in a minute. Another one that looks like this. So it's kind of going laterally, linear. That's kind of showing you that we're going to create something. So, Kevin, can you tell me popcorn, for example? What's it cost to make popcorn?
16 cents.
Is that what it says on there? How did you get the 16 cents?
Well, sorry, it would be 30 cents.
30 cents.
Yeah,
So how did we get to 30 cents?
because that's total.
What are the ingredients?
Corn, coconut oil, salt, butter, packaging.
Corn, coconut oil,
Salt.
salt,
butter.
butter, topping, and packaging. Right. So we're going to take the cost of each one of those. So what's the cost of corn?
6 cents.
6 cents?
Well, it's like 0.065. So.
0.065. So we're going to be a little more specific. 6.5 cents.
Okay.
What size is the unit? 85 ounce popcorn. Okay? So we know we need, how did I get to 6.5 cents for the corn? Where did that come from?
Inventory report.
No? You guys have already done this. You just don't know you did it. You remember we talked about hot dogs?
Yeah.
And remember there was a case of hot dogs and there were 60 in a case? And then we could divide the total case cost by 60 and that would tell us what it is. Same thing happens here. If we have a 35-pound bag of popcorn, you convert that into ounces. My spelling is right. Can't see it. And then you're going to convert that to portions. And then you're going to get a cost. So if a 35-pound bag of popcorn costs $8, what does it cost per pound? A bag of 35-pound bag of popcorn costs $8. What does it cost per pound? How would I do that, Rachel?
By 35 times 8.
No.
5.
I'm going to take $8 and divide it by 35,
Oh, there you go.
and that tells me what the pound is. What's the answer?
0.22.
0.22 per pound. Now, if I were to take that number, how many ounces in a pound?
16.
So I'm going to divide 22 by 16 to figure out how many ounces.
0.014.
0.014. Basically, it's 1.4 cents per ounce.
Wait, you lost me after the point 22.
Okay.
You divide it by,
You're dividing it by
16 ounces.
16 because there's 16 ounces in a pound.
oh, okay.
So we found the pound cost by taking the bag divided by the 35. We're taking that number, which is 22 cents per pound, and we're finding out that there's 16 ounces. The portion size. Now we need to know how many ounces will make an 85-ounce popcorn. How many ounces? The portion size. Let's
85
just say 5 ounces. So now we're going to take 1.4 times 5. What's that number?
0.07.
0.07 or 6.5 cents. That's how we get to corn.
Jeez Louise.
Okay, Louise, tell me what you're thinking.
That's a lot.
A lot of what? A lot of work?
Math per, like.
That's
yeah.
exactly. But how many times do you have to do it?
Once.
Once.
But
You're gonna
that's-
do it January 1st, and you're not gonna have to do it anymore.
Oh, okay.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna set up our cost sheet, just like we did there. It's in our computer. What's the next piece? Cocoa oil. They come in typically 35-pound liquid blocks, well, it's actually solidified coconut oil. We melt that down and we use that as the oil to pop the popcorn in. So we can do the same thing with coconut oil we just did with popcorn. What's the next one?
Salt.
Salt. How much is in the salt? What's the cost of the salt?
Oh, 0.01.
0.01, so 1 cent for salt. We put all that together and it tells us exactly what that cost. Now on your sheet, if you look in the box below it, does it show what the total cost is? 30 cents. Does it show you what we're selling it for?
4.35.
$4.35? Okay, so what's the percent cost? 7.01. So that's theoretical cost. What that means is we've come up with a formula. This is how we're going to make our popcorn. Does that formula account for any oil being spilled? Does it account for popcorn falling on the floor? Does it account for the salt being turned over? No. All of those numbers come back to this piece right here. This is actual. And if you remember, I told you a lot of times, what's more important? Your food cost or the variance? That's right, because that's your job, is to manage the variance. So what we're going to eventually do is what you've learned, we've been working on, is creating a sales mix. And we know we sell this much popcorn and we sell this much soda, and they're at different cost ratings, right? And hamburgers cost more to make than pizzas. And pizzas cost more to make than candy or whatever. But we need to have a mix, and it ends up giving us what we call a perfect cost. And I think you guys have already worked on this with your profit planning and event planning a little bit. All right, so the most important thing to understand is the difference between theoretical and actual. And again, I've gone around many different facilities and I ask people, we did this already, what's your food cost? And somebody will say 18%. What's your food cost? It's 15%. What's your food cost? 22%. Then I say, who has the best food cost? And everybody goes, 15. Well, it sounds like it's good.
Depends on your place.
Huh?
Depends on the place.
Depends on the place and the standards. If we did the theoretical cost and the guy that's got 15, okay, is supposed to be at 10, he's got a variance of 5%. You got a lot of work to do. You're at 18. Your theoretical is 18.3. Who's doing a better job?
Me.
Because you're only 0.3 off, right? And somebody else has got 22 and their theoretical is supposed to be 21.8. They're only what? 2 off. So what your job as managers is to manage everything down to as close to perfection as you can. And every company will set up a standard, okay, of variance. So some people will say you can be within 0.5%. Some people will say you can be within 2%. And I can tell you, by and large, 95% of the people don't know what their variance is. Because I do that. I go around the room after they tell me their food costs and I say, what's your variance? And they look at me like deer in headlights. You do this at the beginning of the year. That way, every month when you go back and you start checking the actual numbers, you can find out where there's an issue. In this particular case, I have a sample sheet up here. We probably need to make some copies of this for them, just so they understand. But in here it shows candy, for example. And it says we started, the cost per bag is 65 cents. In the beginning, we had 768 bags. And that value was $499. At the ending, we had 693 bags. And the ending value was $450. So the total cost for the month, okay, based on what our sales say, was our Snickers, we should have spent $48.75 in Snickers. The entire candy list is right here. Now all of this is set up on an Excel spreadsheet. So all I have to do is take the inventory numbers that come off the POS report at the end of the month or the end of the day, and I just plug those numbers in, and it tells me The perfect cost for candy, okay, would be $2,016.50. And in this particular category, this one theater, they sold $7,261 in candy sales. So their perfect cost should be 27.77%. Not all of these are 27.27%. Does that make sense? It's weighted, very much like you did when you were doing profit planning. Remember, every item had a different sort of measurement. For example, sodas. What does sodas typically average in sales? At a total sales, how much of that is made up by selling sodas?
At least
20,
20%.
20 or 25%.
I'm giving you guys a standard, and the reason I keep repeating it is because someday it's going to show up on a test, and you're going to say, I don't remember him telling me that. Typically, it's 50% cold beverages.
I was thinking that.
What?
I was thinking that.
Yeah. And then, what did I tell you? In movie theaters, what percentage of the sales is in popcorn?
50 and above.
50 and above? No. Because if sodas are 50, it can't be 50 and
Wow.
above.
25%,
Very good, it's 30%.
30%.
Okay? And then what is candy? Somewhere between 12 and 15%. So if you look at those three items, those three core items, that's 85% of your business in three items. And yet we spend all of our time trying to do pizzas and hamburgers and nachos and, you know, hot dogs and all this other stuff when the core value in theaters is right there. Let's look at stadiums, baseball stadiums. What percent of the business is cold beverages?
50%.
Yeah.
Thank you. You remembered it. Okay. What percent is hot dogs?
Probably 20. Like
25 to 30%. It's replacing popcorn. Okay. What percent is popcorn?
12 to
12 to 15. Another 85%. The lesson to learn here is that over the past 75 years, those typical standard or numbers have remained the same. And we've invented nachos, we're doing pizzas now, we're doing all this other stuff, but the core brands, the core items still remain the same. If we went to concerts, what percent of sales come from beer?
50%.
Yeah, 50.
About 50%. Beer replaces sodas. And it might be, let me just say this, it might be 42%, but sodas aren't 50% anymore. Sodas are only like 8 to 10%. That make sense? So we still kind of get between that 50 and 60% range. All right. So if you're a good manager and you want to control costs, the first thing you want to know are the recipes and the ingredients. You're going to convert that into product amount, which is what we just did. Okay? Right here, we were trying to figure out what the product amount is we need. So we know that we have a 5-ounce portion, and 5 times 1.4 is something like 7 cents, or 6.5 is the example that we used. Okay? Now we know cost per item, right? In this particular case, we used popcorn as an example. Then we converted it to a dollar value. Now here's what's important to remember. How much profit do we make off of that popcorn? The example that we used. It's in the chart. I think you told me it cost.
Is it margin number?
Yes.
Margin price?
Yeah.
$4.045. That's how much we're making off.
Okay. So every time we sell a 85-ounce popcorn, we're making $4.45?
Yeah.
Is that what it says on the paper?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I don't have the paper in front of me.
Do we need a margin percentage?
Yeah, well, no, you don't. You could. We know the percentage cost was what, about 7%? So the contribution margin would be what? Let's see how well you remember this.
93.
How'd you get that?
Subtract 7.
You subtracted 100. Remember, contribution margin is 100% minus whatever the variable cost was. In this case, it's 7. So your contribution margin is 93%. Is that good or bad?
Bad. No. It's how much.
If you're making 93% profit on an item,
yeah,
that's pretty
good.
darn good.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. And so that's one of the things that I debate all the time. As we change our method of operation in concession stands at movie theaters. We're getting away from popcorn, and we're trying to sell hamburgers and chicken tenders and fish and chips and pizzas. What do you think the contribution margin is on those items?
Well,
About 65%. So I'm going from 93 to 65. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
Huh?
if you're replacing popcorn, then yeah, it makes sense, because who wants to go to a movie and eat chicken tenders?
As an owner, I'm making 93% money on every dollar if I sell popcorn. If I switch over to pizza, I make 65 cents on every dollar. Which one am I making the most money on?
popcorn.
By how much? 30 cents on every dollar.
30 cents.
That turned, let's just say you had $1 million. Okay, that's $300,000. So I'm trading really low cost items, high gross margin items for things that cost a lot more and don't produce as much profit. So why am I doing it?
To try and increase your profits since other things are more expensive.
Let's not lose sight. This is the most important thing you're going to want to learn today. Of the rights. You told me that popcorn, okay, we're going to get $4.75 selling price, right?
Yeah.
And the cost was 30 cents?
Yes.
Okay, so 30 cents is the cost. So the margin, according to what you told me, is $4.45. And the cost of goods is 7%. Pizza. I'm going to get $7.50. All right? And it's going to cost me, my ingredient cost is $2.50. What's my margin? $5. How did you get that?
Subtraction.
That's right. You're going to subtract that, and you're going to come up with $5. And the product cost here is 33%. This is 7%. Which one do I want to sell the most of? You know me well enough now to know that that was a trick question,
Yeah.
right? So you said popcorn. So you guys, you two, go ahead and take your 45 to the bank, because this is what you're depositing as cash, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to take my $5 to the bank.
Yeah, but you may only have like $2 $5, but we'll have like $4.45. We'll sell more popcorn.
Maybe. This is why we do what we call a sales cost mix, because we want it to be balanced. Every time we have something at 33%, we want to have something that's about 10% that we can sell with it. We do the same thing in restaurants. I think, did I tell this class a story about in hotels where back in the day it was, you're going to laugh when you hear this, but it was like $14 for a really nice filet. And there was about a 40% cost. But we sold a $2 cup of coffee with each one of it, and the cost on coffee is 2%. So really what we were doing is selling the filet at $16, not $14. That makes sense? Because you know, like, if you get a popcorn, what do you have to get to go with it?
A drink.
A soda, exactly. So you try to combine this. So in this particular case, for every pizza you get, what are you going to get?
$5.
We're going to get $5, but what other menu item will go with it?
A drink.
Yeah, you can't hardly eat a pizza without getting a bottle of water or a soda, right? So now I'm going to take my soda that has a similar kind of cost and merge it, put it together. Here's the overall thing I want you to remember, and never forget this, whatever you do the rest of your life. Okay? You will never once deposit in the bank a percentage. Never. You only present dollar bills to the bank. So even though the cost is a little higher, right, we make more money here. So back to the question, why do we sell pizza?
Because you make more money.
Thank you. You got it. You guys are doing good today.
So when you merge them, would it be 40% and you add your $4.45 and $5 together if you were merging them?
No. So what we've done in the past two chapters, is we looked at what the volume was. So if you remember, in some cases, popcorn was 30% or 25%, okay? And pizzas were 2%. I don't know. It's going to change from site to site, location to location. But what we're really trying to point out here is the balance, and some are weighted more than others. So if you remember Form B, and we had hot dogs, and it was like 32%. And then we had popcorn, we had sodas, and it was like 11%. And we had beer, and it was like 14%. All of them had different percentages. Remember that? And I said, don't add all these up and divide by 2. Or add all these up and divide by the number of items. Because that'll give you an average, but that's not what your food cost is.
So how do you merge them?
Go back to Form B in the test. So if you remember, we had the chart.
Yeah.
Okay? Then we had all the items here. Item. And then there was a percent of sales. Hot dogs, I put in 20%. And we took the 20% times the $170,000, whatever the number was. And that told us what we sold. And then we had to know what is the perfect cost. And the perfect cost was 32%. And so we took 32% times what the sales were, and then that told us what our total cost was for that category. All of this is in chapter 3 if you go back and you look at how to formulate this.
Okay.
Then what we did is we added up all the items, and each one of them had a different weight, and each one of them had different sales. Each item had a different cost. And the way we got the perfect cost was we added up all these dollars here. We got a total dollars cost. And we divided it by total sales. And that became
Divided by total sales.
total sales. Total cost divided by total sales. And I cautioned you, I said, do not add each one of these up and divide by the number. That will give you a false reading. So for example, I think on the test, when the food cost like 19.27% or something, 19 point something percent. But we had items in popcorn like 7. We had sodas at 11. Then we had hamburgers at 34 and candy was at 33. We had all those different numbers. And the reason it ended up being 19% is because the low-cost items outsold the high-cost items. So therefore, our cost as a whole was brought down. Because there were a lot of items in there at 32, 33, 34%, 40%. Did we have tobacco on there where it was 50% or something? We did in the case history, because I remember Kevin saying, what's tobacco doing on here? And I told a story about how old I was and we used to sell cigarettes. So you understanding a little bit better? What was the point of this discussion?
I'm so kind of confused on, I'm almost there. It's just, I'm still not making the connection between how what we just learned ties back to this. Because I know how to do Form B and stuff, but
Okay.
when you just said merge.
Okay, so what I'm really talking about right now is cost control and knowing what your perfect cost is versus what people think it is.
Okay.
And what I said was some 90% of all the managers out there, they know what their actual cost is. And they think they're doing a good job because they hear other people say my food cost is 18%, it's 18%. Okay? But the real cost should be 13%. And they're giving away 5% of whatever their annual volume is, which could be a lot of money. I mean, if you have a movie theaters, if you only have one movie theater, it's like the Paradiso, and they're doing $10 million a year in sales, and you're giving away 5% because you're not managing your business. Kevin, what's 5% of $10 million?
A lot.
Thank you for your help. I bet it's $500,000. How much do you make in a year? That's probably 5 times your salary.
Yeah,
You,
probably more.
So you could have 5 more managers working. You know what I'm saying? Or you could put $500,000 more in the bank. That makes profit for you. Okay, the real reason we have the conversation is because I wanted to drive home the point. You deposit dollars,
Not presented.
percentages are evaluation or efficiency ratings. So when we analyze the business, we want to know which items are making the most money for us, and should we be selling those more?
For this project, is there any way we would be able to get our previous tests back to use them as a reference? Or is that just like a no?
Okay. So here's the truth. The truth is that everything that's on in your test is in your book. Okay? If you have a book, turn to page 92. In some books, it might be 94. If you look at that, there's your template, there's your boilerplate. Okay? It kind of outlines what you're going to want to do. And the difference between 100 or 105 on your project and a 60 is if you do it just like this, you didn't put enough time, energy, and love into it. Does that make sense? And then if you do something like this is 105.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you have the information, decipher it, and then see how you could be creative and make up. There's one in here where the guy's doing Liquid Forest Amphitheater. I kind of like that name, the Liquid Forest. I think they're going to sell a lot of beer in this place. Okay? You know, Joanna created Edinburgh Castle. I thought that was pretty creative. This one right here is Come and Get It catering company. So they're doing catering in Texas. This one here is a zoo. What I do is I like to look at your pro formas and your forms and see if you're going to make any money and if you know how to transition. So if I was to give you any advice, I would say you have case history A, you have case history B. You've got 2. This one's a little small community hockey center. Right? I don't know what you want to create, but that's your boilerplate right there. And then you've got all your forms in there. And if you did the Excel spreadsheets like I suggested you could do, and that I passed on to you, you're going to put your numbers in there and print it out and do just like, who was it? I think it's this one. What does that look like? Form A, right? And they put down the list of the number of events, and the key components were highlighted in a different ink. There you go. Form B did the same thing. They listed hot dogs, hamburgers, pizza, salad, French fries, nachos, pretzels, popcorn, cotton candy, ice cream, snow cones, cold drinks, hot drinks. What's missing?
Tobacco.
No. No alcohol. This is it. See, so I look at things like that. Are they selling alcohol? Why did she not put alcohol in there? I'm trying to read her mind. And it's a family facility. So if you're doing putt-putt golf, do you want to sell beer?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's your decision. All right? And then they had what percent of sales were hot dogs? 25%. And so they were able to come up with a food cost here of 22.95%. Is that good or bad?
Depends on understanding.
Exactly. See, she set the sell price for all of these items. So in her menu, she's decided this is what I want to charge for hot dogs. But at the end of the day, the end of the year, she's going to evaluate her actual food costs versus what she said was perfect. But at least she knows what the theoretical cost is. Now she can manage to that number. Same thing. Does that look familiar?
Mhm.
You had that form, right? And that's what she chose to do.
What did she get?
She got 100.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep, she got 100. But you know what? There are a lot of them in here that aren't quite that fancy, and they got hundreds. This one here got extra credit because this person here, what I want you to understand is, pretend you're trying to get a loan from the bank to start this business. The bank is going to be more impressed with something like this than they are this. Why?
Just doesn't catch your eye.
That's right. This has the emotional attachment.
Yeah.
I'm a professional. I'm going to do things right. I'm paying attention to a lot of details. This person right here says, I understand. I can do the business. My business is going to be profitable.
What does that one get?
This one here got like a 95. This business plan is good. Okay?
So what's pizzazz? Got it.
Well, it's a combination. There's pizzazz.